So you want to build an application that's accessible anywhere in the world, and you can access that application anonymously, and you want to build it in PowerApps. So the short answer is you can't do it. PowerApps require an Office 365 logon and an Office 365 tenant to run. The long answer is a little bit different. You can build an application using Microsoft PowerApps and Flow and using another Microsoft platform called Microsoft Forms. So as long as you're willing to accept a few limitations with the Microsoft Forms platform, you can build applications that will allow for anonymous access and anonymous input of data, but then consume that data in Microsoft PowerApps. Let me walk you through an example now. So for today's demo, I'm going to try to keep things as simple as possible, and but I'm still going to try to give you a practical demonstration on how this technology or how this technique could be used. So the first thing we're going to do is, I've got SharePoint open here, but I'm going to open Microsoft Forms. So that's just forms.office.com, and I'm going to create a new form. Now for today's example, I'm going to create a site permit form. It's just going to be a simple form that's going to allow external users to request access to a company site. So let's call this site permit. And here's where we add the fields to our Microsoft Forms. So I'm just going to click Add New. See how, like I was saying, our selections are pretty limited here, but we've got a few fields that we can play around with. So certainly we can add text fields. So my first field I'm going to add, or I'm going to ask the user, ask the requestor, is their name. For my next question, I'm going to ask them your organization. And then I'm going to ask them for their email address. Reason for visit, and well, let's make that a long answer. Let's go with another text field, and actually, let's not make that text field. Let's add a new field, and let's go for a date, and date of visit. Let's go for another text field, number of days visiting. Okay, I think that's probably going to be good enough. And we want to make sure anyone with the link can respond. So that means anybody that clicks on a link or knows the link to this form can access it. Now they don't have to have an account on your network. They don't have to have an Office 365 account. They can be anyone that uses that link or clicks on that link will be able to access this Microsoft form, which is great. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to create a list in SharePoint to accept this data, because currently when we've created this Microsoft form, it's designed just to store data, or it's going to store its own results or its own responses in forms. It's really not designed to do anything further than that. But we can, with using Microsoft Flow, we can pull that information from forms and push that anywhere we like. Now, I'm going to use SharePoint in this example, and I've already created a SharePoint list for our permits. So if we have a look down here, site contents, and we find site permits, this is the list I'm going to push the data into. Okay, I can see I also put in the user's phone here. So let's also add that. Let's add that field, your contact number. Let's maybe move that up there. So we've got your name, your organization, your email address, your contact number, the reason for your visit, the date you're visiting, and the number of days you're visiting. If we go back to SharePoint, they're all of our fields we're going to use to capture that data. And that's just our SharePoint list. Now we need a flow. We need to create a Microsoft flow to take to whenever a new form is submitted to Microsoft Forms, we're going to run that flow, and then that flow is going to pick up that data that's been captured in Microsoft Forms and push that into SharePoint. So let's go to flow, create a flow editor. Let's just create a new flow from blank. Let's just skip the wizard stage because we don't need it. We're just gonna go straight to our first action, and our first action is going to be Microsoft Forms action, and we want the trigger on this flow to be when a new response is submitted. Let's click on that, and the new form is going to be our site permit because that's our form that we created. New step, we need another forms trigger, or forms action I should say. Get response details. The form again will be site permit. And the unique ID is from when a new response is submitted, which is that action. We're going to select the list of response notifications response ID. So that links now our action to get the response details to our when a new response is submitted. So we've just gotten our response details. So the next action we want to do is create our SharePoint item. Scroll down. Did I go past it? Create item. Now in here, just select a SharePoint site. So I'll just copy and paste that. Ooh, go back to flow. And once we put our site in, we should be able to see our site permits list appear, which is great. Now here are all the fields in, so we're gonna site permit. This is just our title for our list item. Each, as you know in SharePoint, every list item requires a title, so we're just gonna call it site permit for, and we're gonna make push in reference to the user's name that they've submitted. And in here, we're going to go responder's name again. The organization will be the organization that they inputted. The email will be not the responder's email. We're going to put your email address, which is what the field that we created on the form, which they'll be putting their own or whatever email address they want to put in there. That'll be the email that our PowerApp sends our notification to. So our phone is phone number, reason for a visit, date of visit. Now the date will be a little bit different because I used the date field in SharePoint because I wanted to keep that as a date for sorting and just for practical reasons down the track. I didn't want to just use a straight text field. So what we need to do, we do need to convert that to a date from Microsoft Forms. So in here, so SharePoint understands that that's a date. Now if we go here, we go under the date and time, now fields, might need to click more. And we're looking for convert to UTC. Perfect. And we can see our expression function is there with our flashing cursor in between the two brackets. Now in dynamic content, we want to select here we want to select date of visit, but this function does require two parameters. So at the end of after that field, we want to add a text string here, and this is our source time zone. So I'm just going to put Eastern Standard time, but this will be your time zone, or the time zone you want to capture this data in. Click OK. Now the length of visit, I also used a number field in SharePoint, so we'll have to do another conversion here. This is a simpler one. We just want to change that to an int value. Get back to dynamic content, and up here, length of visit. We select length of visit, click OK. Right, let's click save. Alright, I didn't give that flow a very good name actually, so let's go in and just call that site permit request. Now, if we go back to forms and we go to share and we get a copy of that link, so that's our link to our actual form, and I just open a new browser window, paste that in. So this is now our externally facing form that people will use to fill in their data. So let me just fill it out for me. Just like I was requesting a site permit. So my organization is, let's just put, and my email address that I want to get all my notifications to will be, put a number in, site training, and our data visit will be tomorrow, and I'm just going to be there for 1 day. So let's click submit. Let's take a quick look at flow. Now we can see our last attempt here was successful, and it ran through successfully. If we go to our SharePoint site and we have a look at our site permits list, we can see that our Microsoft form has successfully submitted a record into our SharePoint list via flow. And they're all of our details that we captured in Microsoft Forms. So the last step in the equation here is to create a PowerApp based on this SharePoint list. So then this can be processed further. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to PowerApps. Just quickly sign into the PowerApps editor. I'm going to create a blank canvas app. I'm just going to call this site permits. So firstly, let's just put a gallery down on the screen, and we'll just make it a blank vertical gallery, and we want to connect that up. So let's go to our data sources and add data source. We want to connect to SharePoint. Just copy and paste our site here. Connect, and we want to connect to the site permits. That's great. So in here in our gallery, our data source will be the site permits list. All right, perfect. Alright, it doesn't look that great, but it doesn't matter. Now, just the other thing that I'll add here is an icon here that we can use to access the request and bring up the edit form, and let's just put a Like I said, really ugly form here, guys. A really ugly app, I should say. So I've just quickly created, like, I didn't record it, but I just quickly created another screen here to show a bit more details for the request. Now, I've covered this subject many times in other videos, so just feel free to go back and watch some one of my previous videos if you are not really sure about that step. Back to the gallery, we'll just, on this button here, we're navigating to screen 2. So if we click on that, we can see screen 2. Right. Now, the other screen 2 is going to be where I approve or reject the request, because this is now our PowerApp and this is going to be accessed internally by our approving manager. This is the app he's going to use to approve or reject site requests. Now, I could have even used a I've just used a desktop Canvas app here, but I could have even used a mobile phone app template. So this would have been pretty useful for a site manager, for example, who does a lot of these kind of approve or rejects. And he could have just been getting these requests straight to his mobile phone and rejecting on the fly like that. But like I said at the beginning here, this is just a really simple example on how this works. Feel free to, when you're playing around with this yourself, to, of course, advance on these techniques and think a bit more out of the box. Okay, so we're going to need a couple more fields in our SharePoint list, I've just realized here. So if we go to our list settings, I'm going to create a couple more columns. I need a status field, because that is going to be the field that we're going to set our status of our site permit request, either rejected or approved. And I'm going to create another column called approval comment. Comment. And I'm just going to make that a multi-line. And yeah, just make it plain text. Click OK. All right, go back to our PowerApp, and just like always, when we create new columns in our data source, we just need to go to our data source and refresh it. And in here, I just want to add a couple more fields. So I'm going to add a drop down. Let's just put a label as well. And that drop down, and you can see I'm not naming any of these fields either, which is pretty crazy, but these are only display fields, so it probably doesn't matter so much, but let's definitely rename this guy. Going to call that approval action. I'll just label that action. So we'll put a text input field here. That text input field will be a multi-line text input field, and call that approval reason. Okay, now we just need a save button up here. And that's going to do our save to our record. And our drop down, our items, is just going to be rejected. I guess we want a blank here to start off with as well. Or maybe even let's have it say select. And let's not default the text field to anything. Alright, so in our save, just want to do a patch. To site permits, our data connection, and we want to do where ID equal to gallery 2 dot selected ID and want to do status is equal to DD approval action selected text value. Just fix up that ID there. Okay. Now back in our gallery, let's also show status here so we can see an update. Let's set another label. All right, let's give that a go. So I'm going to select approved, and this is good to go. Click save. Okay, so the other thing I didn't do was after that patch, I didn't do a navigate. So let's go back to screen 1 and cover. All right, cool. Let's try that again. So approved, good to go. Let's click save, and now we're approved. So if we go back to Microsoft Forms, let's submit a new request. This is now Bob. Organization bob.inc. And he's Bob at bob.com. My number is 2222. I love you guys. My date of visit is on the 29th, and I'm going to be visiting for 1 day. Let's click submit. Now, I didn't put a refresh in here, so let's just quickly insert a gallery refresh. And we're just going to refresh that data connection. So let's start that up again, and let's click. Now we've got a new request. If I click on the arrow, I can see our request. He's visiting. Oh, that's interesting. Did I not set the text up? Uh-huh. So we want the text to be gallery 2 selected. Reason. Better. All right. Now I can also see here these fields have carried over from my previous request. So what I do want to do on screen 1, on visible, I do want to do a reset of those fields. So the field was txt approval reason, and the other field I want to reset is the drop down. Okay. All right, that's great. Now, if we do one more, Jenny Wong, capital W, and her organization is Wong Inc. Jenny at jennycom.com, and her number's 444. I also love you guys. This is really terrible fields. I'm sorry guys, but I'm just putting some data in. Number of days visiting 4. Let's click on that. Let's go back to our Power App, hit refresh, and we can see Jenny's request has come in. If I click on the arrow, I can see she's visiting for 4 days. This is the date of her start of her visit. She also loves us. And now I can hit approved. Let's reject this one. Sorry, Jenny. Too busy during this time. Click save. And we can see that request has been rejected. And we could always go back and approve it another time if we really needed to. Okay, so that is our site request. So the only other thing that would be great to do is we could also add an email action when we're hitting approved or rejected, and we could send back to the user the actual responses that I've given. So how about we quickly do that? So in our patch here, after we do our patch, we want to be able to do a connection to email. So let's to Office 365 Outlook. So let's in our data sources first, let's add a new data source, and we should already have it in my list here. Office 365 Outlook. Perfect. And if we go on our save command here, and we want to do a send email v2, and we want to do subject to subject body. So the two email, we're sending this to so gallery to selected. Need to request a name. Email, and the subject will be let's just say your site visit request, and the body will be your site request has been see. I'm just getting the results here again from our selected item. Actually, yes, this will be, so this actually won't be that. This will be the field. So this will be DD approval action selected value. We could also put, actually, we could also put the reason And the reason is that. Probably not the best formatting, but hey, that will work. Okay. Let's give that a go. So if we go back to our first screen, and let's just pretend this one hasn't been submitted. So let's go in and let's select approved. You are all those days are suitable for your site training. See you then. Click save. Now, if I open my email, I can see I've received an email from our PowerApp. I click on it. Now, sorry about the formatting, I did miss a bit here, but we can see your site visit has been approved. So of course I would fix that up a little bit. And the reason is those days are suitable for site training, see you then. So we've taken a external form, we push that into SharePoint, and then we can use a PowerApp to consume that data and to action it, and then reply back to our external user. So we've effectively created a really nice loop or an app using those 3 different components. So that's building anonymous access applications in Microsoft Power Apps and Flow, and of course using Microsoft Forms. Leave comments in the comments section below to let me know what you thought of this solution. Of course, like and subscribe to stay in the loop for any upcoming videos. I thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.